Have you ever wondered if a cat could talk, what kind of stories it would tell about its day? Picture this: a plump, bright orange cat living in a tall, skinny house squeezed between two others. What would life be like for her? And what happens when her very best friend suddenly disappears for the whole day? Hello and welcome back to Giggle Table World, where children's bedtime stories and meditations make drifting off to sleep a dream. Tonight we're reading a warm and whimsical story called The Cat's Pyjamas by Susanna McLaughlin. In a tall, slender house, tucked tightly between two others just like it, lived a very special cat. She was bright orange and perfectly round, so round, in fact, that the little girl who owned her named her Pumpkin. Pumpkin spent her days doing exactly what a cat does best: meowing at birds through the window, nibbling at stray bits of string, and when truly bored, making daring attempts to scale the curtains. Dad wasn't a fan of that last hobby. "She's much too heavy," he'd say. "She'll pull them down." But Pumpkin would simply rub against his ankles and start purring, that soothing, magical purr. And just like that, all was forgiven. Most of Pumpkin's time was devoted to napping, and she took her naps very seriously. She could curl up just about anywhere. Once the whole family laughed when they came home to find her asleep on the top kitchen shelf, nestled between a bag of dried pasta and a tin of baked beans. Nobody knew how she even got up there. And if a human was nearby, Pumpkin would climb onto their lap, stretch her paws overhead, and push her fluffy belly out. An open invitation for belly rubs. She loved everyone in the house, but her very best human was Flo, the little girl who named her. Flo and Pumpkin were inseparable. They had endless fun together. One of their favorite games was with a bundle of feathers tied to a string. Flo would jiggle it, tug it along the floor, and Pumpkin would chase it, skidding across the room like a furry little athlete. They also played with ping-pong balls, plush mice, and colorful yarn. Pumpkin practically lived in Flo's room, brushing against her legs while Flo danced, or soaking in the laundry basket whenever her tail was accidentally stepped on. But Flo would always scoop Pumpkin up and spin around the room with her until the purring returned. To Pumpkin, Flo was the kindest, most loving friend in the world. Flo was so gentle, in fact, that Pumpkin even allowed herself to be dressed up. Flo had an entire collection of tiny hats just for her: a frilly bonnet, a pink cowboy hat, a sunshine yellow flower ring that made Pumpkin's face the center of a bloom, and even a strawberry-shaped knit cap. Each had tiny holes for Pumpkin's ears. She felt quite silly in them, especially the bonnet, but she endured it just to hear Flo's happy giggles. But today, Flo was at school. Pumpkin didn't really understand why school was so important, but Flo had told her how much she loved it, playing with her friends, learning wild science tricks, and discovering faraway lands. So Pumpkin figured if Flo liked school so much, she'd just have to manage on her own for the day. This morning, she'd already munched on some kibble, batted at a dangling toilet paper roll, balanced across the back of the couch, and played soccer with a pair of Dad's socks. Now it was finally time for her favorite daily ritual, the royal afternoon catnap. She climbed onto the squishiest cushion, kneaded the pillow a bit, stretched each tiny toe, and flopped into a deep stretch, paws reaching out as far as they could go. Then came a yawn, the biggest yawn you've ever seen from a cat. Eyes shut tight, Pumpkin curled into a perfect little circle, wrapping her extra fluffy tail around her body like a feather boa. But after just a minute, she opened her eyes again. Why wasn't she asleep yet? She closed her eyes again, still nothing. Maybe this wasn't the right place for today's nap. Time to move on. Uncurling, Pumpkin hopped down to the carpet, her tiny claws tapping against the floor. She padded into the kitchen and into the laundry room, where a large wicker basket full of fresh laundry sat beside the dryer. Pumpkin peered over the rim and sniffed. It smelled like warm cotton and home. She spotted Dad's big fluffy bathrobe nestled in the pile. Perfect. She crouched, wiggled her backside, then leapt, boing, right into the basket. She twisted herself into a knot of towels and socks and settled in, belly down. Comfy? Definitely. Cozy? Absolutely. But something was missing. She'd waited too long. The laundry had already lost its warmth. Still, she lazed around inside for a while, enjoying the fresh fabric. Then, with a little grunt, she rolled out and resumed her mission, finding the perfect nap spot. She trotted through the kitchen and toddled into the sunroom. Weaving through the potted plants, she clambered up onto the windowsill. As she passed the family photos, she gave Flo's picture a gentle pat and finally reached her favorite perch. Pumpkin's search for the perfect afternoon nap had brought her to one of her favorite spots, the sunny windowsill in the sunroom. Nestled between the vibrant petunias and soft begonias, she flopped onto her belly and stretched out luxuriously. Just then, the sun peeked out from behind a fluffy white cloud, casting golden light through the large glass windows. Pumpkin let out a deep sigh and purred softly as the warmth seeped into her fur. In the sunlight, her orange coat lit up gloriously, glowing with all its many hues: tangerine, peach, and apricot. The little patches of white on her chin and belly shimmered like fresh cream. She lay there, basking in the sunbeams, letting go of every little worry in her fuzzy little head. Warm, relaxed, just on the edge of sleep. But something still didn't feel quite right. The windowsill felt harder than usual, not as cozy as she remembered. She kept fidgeting, rolling and wriggling, trying to find the sweet spot. Eventually, she rolled back onto her paws and rubbed her sleepy eyes. Maybe a little walk will tire me out, she thought. She made her way to the cat flap and slipped out into the backyard. She trotted across the stone patio and into the shed, where she sniffed at Dad and Flo's rubber boots and pawed at the giant bag of kibble he kept in there. Despite her best efforts, she couldn't poke a hole big enough to fish out even one cat biscuit. Giving up with a huff, she turned and headed out toward the garden. She wandered through the grass, nosing into flower beds and nibbling on a few leaves. But as she passed the holly bush in the far corner, a strange sound caught her attention. Tap, tap, click, clack, and a soft tune being hummed. Pumpkin furrowed her brow. What in the world is that? She wondered. She poked her head into the bush and couldn't believe her eyes. Sitting there on her spiky little bottom was Elsie the hedgehog, humming to herself while doing something very curious. She held 2 long knitting needles, each connected to a ball of yarn, and her hands moved in an odd, rhythmic dance. Hi, Elsie, Pumpkin called out. I don't want to be rude, but I don't think that's how you're supposed to play with a ball of wool. You're supposed to roll it around, pounce on it, and skid across the floor while chasing it. Elsie chuckled sweetly, her smile peeking out beneath a flower-decorated hat. Hello, Pumpkin, she said warmly. You're absolutely right. That is how you play with yarn. But I'm not playing, I'm knitting. Elsie peered at Pumpkin with kind twinkly brown eyes and scrunched up her pointy little nose. But what are you doing out here at this time of day? Don't I usually see you dozing on the windowsill or curled up among the flower beds around now? Pumpkin let out a soft sigh. I just can't seem to fall asleep today, Elsie. No matter where I go, I can't get comfortable enough. Elsie smiled gently. Well, she said, when my little hedgehog children were just tiny hoglets and they had trouble drifting off, we used to take a little walk to shake out the leftover energy. Then we'd sip warm milk, slip into our fluffiest pajamas, take deep breaths, and think calming thoughts. And before we knew it, we were fast asleep. Pumpkin blinked. Pajamas? Flo had pajamas. They were soft and yellow, covered in clouds and tiny sheep. Every night, Flo would slip them on, and she always fell asleep in no time. Pumpkin knew this well. She would snuggle beside Flo until the little girl was dreaming peacefully before tiptoeing back to her own bed for the rest of the night. But Pumpkin had no pajamas of her own. Elsie, where can I get pajamas for a cat? Pumpkin asked, eyes wide with curiosity. Elsie tapped one of her knitting needles against her chin, thinking. Well, she said, I'm not exactly sure where cats get pajamas, but maybe I can help in a small way. Let's start with some fluffy socks. I love having toasty feet when I nap. Pumpkin's eyes sparkled. Thank you. She exclaimed, not once, but 5 times in a row. She purred with excitement and gently held the yarn between her paws, helping Elsie unravel it as she clacked away with her knitting needles. She had to resist the very strong urge to toss the yarn in the air and chase it around the garden, unspooling it into a chaotic pile of fun. But today, she was on a mission. After receiving her first gift, a pair of soft, fluffy socks from kind Elsie the hedgehog, Pumpkin felt like her little journey was finally beginning to take shape. She lay quietly, watching in admiration as Elsie worked her magic with practiced paws. As Elsie knitted, she hummed a gentle tune, and Pumpkin began to sway her head from side to side in rhythm, as if joining the melody. Little by little, the yarn transformed. First into one cozy sock, then 2, then 3, and finally 4. Elsie carefully tied the socks together with a ribbon and attached them to the back of Pumpkin's collar, making sure they'd stay clean on the walk home. Pumpkin couldn't help but do a happy little dance as she admired her new socks. Thank you, thank you, thank you, she said again and again, beaming. Then, very gently, so as not to prick her paws, she leaned in to give Elsie a careful cuddle. Pumpkin emerged from the holly bush and stepped into the sunshine, proudly carrying her brand new socks on her back. But deep inside, she knew her outfit wasn't quite complete. All I need now is a pair of soft pajama trousers and a comfy shirt, she said to herself. But where could I find those? Without hesitation, Pumpkin squeezed through a small gap in the back fence and stepped beyond the borders of her garden. She wandered through tall wild grass, brushed past bramble bushes, and even nibbled on a few juicy blackberries along the way. Behind her house was a nature reserve, one of Pumpkin's favorite places to explore. Here, the world was wide and free, filled with curious smells and little adventures waiting in every corner. After some wandering, Pumpkin found herself by a moss-covered pond, staring at her reflection in the still green water. She tilted her head. Where in the world could a cat find pajamas? She wondered. Just then, something moved in the water's surface. At first, she thought it was a drifting cloud. But when she looked up into the sky, she realized, she was wrong. Towering around the pond were tall grassy reeds. At their tips, fluffy cream-colored tufts swayed gently in the breeze like golden retriever tails wagging in slow motion. Curious, Pumpkin stretched out a paw and gently lowered one of the reeds toward her. The moment her paw touched the fluff, she froze. It was so soft, so feathery, so cloud-like. It might as well have been a cloud. It was, without a doubt, the softest thing Pumpkin had ever touched. Apart from her own fur, of course. She couldn't resist rubbing her face against it, purring deeply, completely lost in the moment, until a voice spoke beside her. "How do you do?" the voice said politely. Startled, Pumpkin looked down and saw a small frog standing proudly beside her. He was quite the dashing little fellow, tall on his legs, dressed in a neat tweed waistcoat, a flat cap, a silk handkerchief around his neck, and a shiny brooch pinned to his smart little blazer. Pumpkin smiled and greeted the charming frog. She complimented his outfit, especially the silk handkerchief, which reminded her of the ribbon Flo wore in her hair on special occasions. The frog blushed bashfully and bowed his head. He noticed the reed Pumpkin had been admiring and smiled. "They really are the softest things in the whole reserve," he said. "I've even lined my house with them. My living room rug is now the best spot for an afternoon nap." Pumpkin nodded in agreement. She told the frog how much she loved napping too, but today she just couldn't seem to fall asleep. She had realized that what she truly needed was a proper pair of pajamas, and she wished she could find a set as soft as those reeds. "Where did you get your clothes?" she asked. The frog gave a modest grin. "I made them myself," he said, "stitched with spider's silk and a pine needle." Pumpkin gasped. "That's incredible! You're so clever!" Puffing up proudly at the compliment, the frog replied, "Wait right here." Pumpkin sat as still as a statue, eyes wide with anticipation as the frog disappeared into the tall grass. Just a moment later, he returned, carrying a spool of shimmering silver thread and a fresh green needle that smelled sweet like pine. "I believe everyone deserves a fluffy pair of pajamas," he said warmly. "Especially a kind kitty like you." Pumpkin clapped her paws in delight. "Thank you," she exclaimed over and over again. And so the two new friends got to work. Pumpkin began gathering soft tufts of reed fluff from all around the pond, carefully delivering them to the frog, who began to stitch them together, each thread expertly woven, each knot tied with care. With the help of the clever little frog and the fluffiest reeds in the reserve, Pumpkin was now one step closer to completing her dream pajamas. The frog was so focused on his stitching that his long, sticky tongue kept slipping out in concentration. Before long, he had created the most delightful pair of pajama trousers, as light as a cloud and just as soft. Pumpkin bounced excitedly around the reeds, ready to leap into another batch of fluff. But there wasn't any left. She looked back at the frog a little concerned, but he simply chuckled warmly. Don't worry, he said. They'll grow back very soon. But for today, we had just enough for your trousers. Pumpkin smiled, pressing a paw gently against the fabric. They're the best trousers in the world, she whispered gratefully. She rolled them up into a neat little bundle, and the frog helped her tie them securely to her collar with the last bit of ribbon. With a happy goodbye and a promise to return soon, Pumpkin padded off into the trees, still on the hunt for the final piece of her pajama puzzle. She soon arrived at a sunny park where people were walking their dogs, reading books on the lawn, and playing games like frisbee. As she wandered through, a flying disc sailed past. Without hesitation, Pumpkin leapt into the air, catching it neatly with her front paws. But instead of keeping it, she gently placed it back on the grass and gave her head a small shake. She couldn't stop for fun, not right now. She was on a very important mission. As she passed the children's play area, a little boy ran up to her with excitement in his eyes. "Can I pet you?" he asked. Pumpkin, though busy, could never resist a kind request. She flopped down onto the grass, showing off her soft belly and inviting him in for some tummy tickles. "My name's Percy," the boy beamed, chatting non-stop as he rubbed her ears. He talked about spaceships, unicorns, and anything else that popped into his busy imagination. Soon, Percy noticed the curious items she was carrying. He knelt down to take a closer look, gently unrolling the fuzzy trousers and inspecting the soft socks. "These are the coziest pajama bottoms I've ever seen," he exclaimed. Pumpkin purred with pride. Percy furrowed his brow, thinking hard. "You've got 4 warm socks," he said, "and a super fuzzy pair of pajama bottoms. But something's missing." He paused for a few seconds, then suddenly lit up like a light bulb had turned on above his head. "I know just what you need. Wait here." Pumpkin froze on the spot, determined not to twitch even a single whisker until he returned. Percy dashed off into the playground, then quickly reappeared with his mum. The two chatted excitedly as they walked toward the car park. Moments later, Percy came running back, holding a soft pale blue jumper that looked like it was spun from cotton candy. "This belongs to my teddy bear. His name's Charlie," Percy explained. "Charlie has loads of clothes, and I think he'd really want you to have this. Besides, he looks better in purple anyway." Pumpkin purred like a little motorboat and danced figure eights around Percy's legs, her heart full of joy. "It's perfect," she meowed, then thanked him with a soft lick on his hand. Percy smiled and carefully tucked the jumper into the collar on Pumpkin's back alongside the other pajama pieces. With a joyful skip, a happy spin, and one last grateful purr, Pumpkin set off for home. She scampered through the park, bounded through the nature reserve, and pranced across her backyard, heart fluttering with excitement. She squeezed through the cat flap, trotted across the hallway, and finally reached the cozy sitting room. With a tired flop, she had landed on the sofa. That adventure had taken a lot out of her. She gently untied the ribbon on her collar, letting her pajamas tumble onto the cushion. With a smile of quiet satisfaction, she looked at them fondly, then placed her front paws over her heart. At last, she began putting them on, starting with the fluffy socks, one by one. And now, after a full day of searching for every last piece, Pumpkin finally had her complete pajama set, each item crafted with care, kindness, and a sprinkle of magic. She started with the striped socks, bursting with vibrant shades of pink and orange that matched her orange fur perfectly. Pumpkin curled her toes gently as she slipped them on, being careful not to catch the yarn on her tiny claws. Once they were on, she let out a content little sigh. Her paws were so warm, so snug, she couldn't help but wiggle her toes in delight. Next came the cloud-like pajama trousers, soft as a breeze, lighter than a whisper. Pumpkin smiled as she stepped into them, letting her tail slip through the specially stitched hole, flicking it happily from side to side. And finally, the pale blue jumper from Percy's teddy bear, Charlie. It wrapped around her like a gentle hug, snug and perfect. In that moment, Pumpkin felt like a teddy bear herself. So soft, so cuddled, so calm, it felt like she could float right into the sky if she wanted to. As she admired her new outfit, she suddenly heard a very familiar sound. The front door creaking open. It was Flo and Dad, home at last. "Pumpkin," Flo called from the hallway. "You'll never guess what I made for you at school today." Pumpkin's ears perked up, and she turned toward the door, waiting excitedly for Flo to come tumbling through. And when she did, she scooped Pumpkin into a big, warm hug. Then, spotting the new pajamas, Flo's eyes lit up. "Oh my goodness, you look amazing," she exclaimed, showering Pumpkin with compliments. "And you know what?" Flo added, eyes twinkling. "It's perfect you found your pajamas today, 'cause I brought back the final touch for your outfit. From behind her back, she revealed a small gift made of soft, floppy felt. A handmade nightcap with a pointed tip and a fluffy white pom-pom dangling from the end. Delicate crescent moons were embroidered all across the fabric. Flo had made it herself in art class. She gently placed the cap on Pumpkin's head. It fit perfectly, wrapping her furry head just right and leaving space for her ears to peek through. Now Pumpkin could still hear Flo's gentle voice. Soft, warm, and always full of love. Her heart glowed. Her pajama set was truly complete. Before long, Flo had changed into her own pajamas and curled up on the sofa with her favorite book. Pumpkin snuggled into her lap, purring contentedly. With her little ears poking out from under the nightcap and her whole body wrapped in soft, fuzzy materials, Pumpkin looked less like a cat and more like a little drifting cloud. As Flo absent-mindedly stroked her ears, Pumpkin began to drift deeper and deeper into a long, peaceful catnap, dreaming of floating through a starry sky. And now you too are floating into deep, peaceful sleep. Feel how your muscles begin to relax. Your arms grow heavy, and your legs too. Let go of the day and feel your body sink into the cozy warmth of your bed. Close your eyes now. Let your eyelids grow heavy. Breathe in deeply and out. Breathe in and out. And as your body becomes heavier, softer, stiller, let your mind drift freely. That's the magical secret of sleep. While your body rests, your imagination takes flight. Like a little bird lifting off from a branch, like a balloon drifting up, 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 higher and higher into the sky. Now imagine you floated so high, your head is poking through a layer of soft, puffy clouds. All around you is the silvery glow of the moonlight. The clouds are white and fluffy, like cotton balls or marshmallows. So squishy. You can lie back on them, roll around, stretch your paws, feel how the clouds hold you gently, surrounding you with calm, wrapping you in the safety of sleep. After drifting up through the skies, wrapped in the soft warmth of her pajamas, Pumpkin now floats peacefully among the clouds. And just like her, you are gliding through a dream surrounded by a sky full of softness and calm. Some clouds are wispy and thin like strands of cotton pulled gently apart. Others are puffy like marshmallows or shaped like little mushrooms standing proud in the sky. Some look like brushstrokes, sweeping and delicate, painted across the night. Let your body completely relax now. Let your mind slow down too. Let your thoughts float upward, light as air, and begin their journey into sleep. You are calm, You are safe. You are held gently in the cozy arms of rest. With your eyes closed, let your imagination carry you up, and far away. In dreams you can go anywhere. Maybe you're sailing on deep blue oceans with the waves that ripple and sparkle as they rise and fall. Or perhaps your mind carries you to floating castles in the sky with spiral towers and drawbridges stretching over moats of glittering stars. Or maybe your dreams take you deep into peaceful green woods, where birds chirp softly in the branches and the trees sway, heavy with dark emerald leaves. Breathe in and out. Again, in and out. With every breath, you're sinking deeper into your cozy sleep. Even with your eyes still closed, you can look around. Not with your eyes, but with your heart and mind, and see where your dreams have taken you. When I fall asleep, I sometimes dream that I'm up among the clouds, in a world so high it touches the moon. There, the clouds shimmer with silver when bathed in moonlight. Sometimes they blush with soft pinks and golds, lit by stars that twinkle like tiny lanterns. What do your dreams look like? Where does your mind take you when the world goes quiet? Maybe in your dreams you find yourself in a gentle field where fluffy white sheep are huddled together. Look, there's a mama ewe, yawning wide before she tucks her lambs beneath her thick, woolly fleece, safe and warm for the night. Or maybe you dream of a dragon, not scary but friendly, curled up with his tail wrapped around him, puffing little clouds from his nostrils as he sleeps. Look, he's smiling. The cloud dragon waves hello, his eyes sparkling with kindness. How gentle he is, how peaceful. And over there, puppies lie on their backs, tongues flopped out, little chests rising and falling in deep sleep. Their eyelids grow heavy. They've had such a long day. See their papa dog, big and fluffy, padding softly over the clouds to kiss them goodnight. Here, in this sky-high sea of clouds, you can truly be free. Feel how light you are. You're weightless, floating, drifting, resting. Everything heavy from your day is lifting away. Let it go. Let it float off like leaves on a stream, carried by the breeze over the edge of the cloud bank and far, far away. Any worries you've had, let them drift. Anything that's made your shoulders tight or your heart busy, let it rise and fall away. 'Cause you are not your worries. They don't define you. You can release them. Just watch them float, float, gone. Now you are as light as the air itself, as gentle as the softest starlight, as tender as the clouds that surround you in this sleepy sky. Everything around you is still and peaceful. The clouds stretch endlessly like a quiet, glowing sea. Close your eyes. Feel the clouds wrap softly around you like a blanket. Let them carry your body gently, drifting further into dreamland. Feel your eyelids grow heavy. Let your whole body melt into sleep. Your mind begins to float, loosen, wander, light as a feather, soft as a cloud. Breathe in and out. The world of clouds is here, waiting just for you. Let yourself fall into their gentle embrace. They are here to protect you. They are here to hold you. They are here to comfort you while you sleep. Sleep well, little one. Sleep well, surrounded by clouds and stars. Feel how soft you are. Feel how weightless. You're floating, drifting, breathing slowly, light as air, gentle as moonlight, soft as clouds. Good night, little one. Sleep tight